Hey guys, welcome back. Today is a day that I can't even call it special because that doesn't cut it right. Today is a day that is like right at the top of my bucket list. Today I am joined by a man who needs absolutely no introduction, but he's gonna get one anyway. I'm joined by Marty O'Donnell. Marty, do you want to just introduce yourself for a second?
I'm Marty O'Donnell. I'm a composer, sound designer, audio director. I worked at Bungie for a bunch of years. Worked on Myth and Halo, and also Destiny. And now I have a small game company, about 30 of us, called Highwire Games, and we shipped a game in November called Golem, and we're working on something right now.
Oh, hot off the presses. Nice.
Yeah.
So before we start the questions, because I've got a lot of questions from both me, friends in real life, and also a load of viewer questions, I just want to fanboy for 30 seconds because I can't not.
Okay.
Like, you are one of my biggest idols. You have been since I was 6 years old and I first played Halo.
6, wow.
I started young. I got in there quite young, and I'm proud to say that. I have been one of your biggest fans my entire life. I remember as early as being 6 or 7 years old, listening to your soundtracks, your Halo soundtracks in the car on the way to elementary school. I even the other day found a CD that I made in 4th grade, I think it was, of remixes of the Halo 2 soundtrack that I'd made that were absolutely god-awful and should never see the light of day. But yeah, I just had to get that out of the way because you being here is an absolute honor, and honestly, I can't thank you enough, man. I really do appreciate it.
Well, once I had that interview with the American guy, can't remember his name.
It'll come to us later.
Yeah, and I know your name is Luke. I actually don't know your last name, so it's actually great to be here. It's an honor to be on your podcast. I've enjoyed a lot of the videos you've made over the years. I probably haven't seen all of them, but it's the ones I have seen have always been really fun to watch. So I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm not surprised you've not seen all of them. I've made like 700 now, so
Okay.
Honestly, I'd hope that you hadn't seen all of them, but that means the world to me. I really appreciate that. But yeah, let's get down to the real meat and potatoes of today's video.
Well, before we do that, you know that one of the main reasons I'm on here is to try to piggyback on all your subscribers and get them to give me the check. I need a check on my YouTube channel. I'm still at 71,000 subscribers, and I think I need to get to 100,000.
Marty, I am
so that's
7
why I'm
steps
using
ahead.
you.
I'm 7 steps ahead of you because one of the first things I was going to mention to this video is that you guys, if you somehow haven't done so yet, need to go and drop a subscribe on Marty's channel.
That's right.
He's uploading so much cool behind the scenes stuff from the Halo days, early sketches of for example, the other day he uploaded an early version of Brothers in Arms, and the sort of evolution that track went under through Halo 1, 2, and 3. And loads of other cool behind-the-scenes videos from, you had one with Steve Vai when Steve Vai was just in the studio just shredding.
Yep.
So cool to see that. So if you haven't subbed to Marty yet, the man, there is not a single person on planet Earth who deserves a check mark on YouTube more than the person right here. So please go and drop a sub on Marty's channel. Get this man to 100k subs, and, like Ackman said, the possibilities of a Marty O'Donnell 100k sub special, I mean...
It could be some special stuff. Who knows what I'll do if I get to 100. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
There's your incentive. Go and drop a sub right now. Right. So the questions. The first one that I'm going to ask is one that I think will kind of set the stage for this entire interview. And it's one that I've not actually seen many people ask you. So could you sort of elaborate on your role at Bungie as a whole? Because obviously your main role was composer, but if the Vidocs are obviously to be believed, you did a lot more than that. You were, your hand was in quite a lot of different projects and sort of teams at Bungie. You helped out with a lot of other stuff besides music. So could you just sort of elaborate on your overall role at Bungie outside of composing?
Yeah, sure. It's interesting that you say that my main role was composer. I never thought of my main role as composer. I didn't want to just be a composer ever on video games. I wanted to get into video games and be the audio director. I wanted to be in charge of everything that came out of the speakers. And that's what I did. So, and if you're in charge of everything that comes out of the speakers, that means you're working on sound design, dialogue, mix, music, implementation, the entire audio experience that the players have. I would say for me, I love playing games and I love what the audio experience is, but I wanted to have a singular vision for the audio. Because I felt like I played a lot of games where the visions seemed to be all over the map, and they would hire an outside composer to do some music, and maybe a different composer to do some other music, and maybe somebody directed the actors, and somebody else worked on sound design, and maybe somebody else programmed it or implemented it. And I just felt like even if my hands weren't physically on every one of those areas, I wanted to direct all those areas from a creative direction standpoint so that there would be a unified vision that would come through to the player. So that's, and so when you think about that, that means I'm with the designers who are designing weapons, because I'm saying, well, what's the rate of fire on this weapon? And are you sure you want to do it with a reload this way? Maybe the animation should be more this way. And then I could be involved with the writing of the script, because I could sit at table reads because I knew I was going to be directing the actors. And then I would be the one casting the actors because I had experience doing that. So I worked with whoever the writers were, and especially on the Halo series, it was mostly Joe Staten for the 10 years I worked on Halo. So anyway, that's how that worked. I ended up being just intimately involved in a whole bunch of different areas, including design, because especially once we get to the point where any level is being played and is playable, the emotional story that I think needs to come through is really told by how the music interacts with the player. And so I'm playing the game, I'm sitting with the designer, I'm playing through that level, and I'm saying, well, this is a significant spot right here, right? Yeah, it is. But what if I went left instead of right? Well, then we do this. And so I would work with the designer to figure out all the different ways music could help score the encounter or that moment or that level. And then, then you go into the UI and you go into the menu screens and you go into what happens when you're saving. It's like I touched every part of the game experience. Not because I'm a control freak, but because that's the way people experience a game. I would always say, what is the player's experience from the moment they open the package and stick it in the box? What is the first thing they see and hear, and what is the last thing they see and hear when they quit? So I wanted to make sure that felt great all the way through.
Yeah, I like that, because it feels like with the old Bungie games, no part of development was really compartmentalized. Everything was developed with every other aspect of the game in mind. So like you were saying, the narrative, the story, and sort of even the flow of a level was designed with the music in mind, or vice versa. So you get to a certain point in the level and then a certain emotional piece of music starts playing or something. And I think that's a really interesting idea, having all the teams sort of mix with each other in development and work alongside each other like that. I feel like, that was definitely one of the many reasons why the original Halo games had such emotional emphasis to them, because everything flowed so nicely together.
Well, the word flow is very important. I used to use that word all the time. I would talk about how are we flowing from this menu to in-game? How are we getting into the cinematic moment? How are we getting into a scripted moment? How are we getting out of a scripted moment? One of the decisions we made really early, because we did this in Oni, which is before Halo, is we did all of our, what we called cinematics, were essentially scripted in-engine, in-game moments, which meant that in the flow, you're not unloading the game engine and loading a pre-rendered movie and then going to a black screen and then going back into a game. It all flows. And sometimes we were pretty successful doing that, and it was seamless and it was elegant. Sometimes we struggled with it. But I still feel like that's, for me as a game player, that's the way I like the games. I don't like having these moments that interrupt and take me essentially out of the game. And that was just something that I don't understand. I gotta say, I mean, as in terms of if you're gonna like remake something that has already been made, I wish they would honor the decisions that we had made for the player's experience, from menus to cinematics, not doing pre-rendered cinematics. It's just me. That's my preference, and that's why it's a little disappointing to me to see a remake and people maybe playing Halo that is not the way certainly the people who originally made Halo intended it to be experienced. It's just the way it is. That's very interesting, because only a few days ago I watched quite an interesting comparison between the original Halo 2 cutscenes and the ones in the remastered version of Halo 2. And as nice as they look, as like really high fidelity as they are in Halo 2 Anniversary, they do lack a certain soul. They're not entirely soulless, not to say that they are by any means, but they do lack a certain soul that the original in-game cutscenes had. And that's quite interesting as well, because that feeds really nicely into another question that I was going to ask you. Sure.
What are your thoughts and opinions on the remastered versions of your music from Halo 1 and Halo 2 in their remastered versions?
Oh, that's a slightly dangerous question, but at my age, I don't necessarily care anymore.
Fair enough.
Everybody who worked on the remastered music, I'm not talking about the game itself, I'm just talking about the music for the game. They're all friends of mine, and I've known them for years. Paul Lipson is a buddy. I have huge respect for everybody. Lenny, Tom Salta, these people are amazing, and they, especially for the Halo 2 anniversary, they really went all out and got all sorts of musicians and stuff. They got Steve Vai back into the studio, and they went to Skywalker Ranch and did all this great stuff. From the standpoint of throwing everything at it and really trying to make the production value as high as possible, I give them giant praise. The part that I am a little bit disappointed in is the fact that I wish they could have just talked to me while they were doing it.
Did they not talk to you at all while doing it? Like, didn't consult?
No, they, believe it or not, and I'm telling you something that probably nobody knows, but I don't care. I don't understand it.
Fair enough.
Microsoft said you're not allowed to talk to Marty O'Donnell about these remasters.
What?
They were actually prevented from talking to me about remastering the music. And after they did it, I mean, especially after Halo 1, I called Paul, and I'm like, he wasn't actually a full-time employee of Microsoft at the time. He was a contractor, and so he had to do what they said. He didn't understand what the reason was. None of those guys knew it. They're like, hey, this is great. We'll talk to Marty. Tom Salta, is a good friend, and he's a synth and sampling expert. He knows equipment like there's no tomorrow. And if he could have just gotten a little information from me, it would have made his life so much easier. Lenny did the orchestrations, and he had to do them all by ear, which is amazing. But I mean, there are inner voices, in the second clarinet or the, second viola that just didn't quite make it because you can't hear them that well. And I hear some of those differences, and I just feel like, wow, if they had I could have given them the scores, and then they could have done what they wanted to with them. They could have re-recorded them as I gave it to them. They could have added to it. They could have done whatever. And, Paul wanted me to come down to the sessions. He wanted me to be at the session, especially for the Halo 2 sessions when Steve Vai went to Skywalker Ranch. I mean, that would have been a great, fun party time. But apparently,
I imagine
there was enough legal sort of animus between Microsoft and Bungie. Now, remember, at the time they were doing those anniversary editions, I was, full-time audio director at Destiny. And I think there was still some, some legal questions between Bungie and Microsoft. And Microsoft just like, nope, you can't talk to Marty, and that's the rule. If you want to do this, Marty can't be involved. And I just think that's a sort of decision that makes no sense to me. It didn't make any sense to the guys who were working on it either. So
yeah, that's quite baffling to me. I mean, I get that at the time, Bungie had some exclusivity deals with Sony and with PlayStation for Destiny, so I could see this being like a little bit of animosity there, but to remaster what many consider to be one of your many magnum opuses and not have you consult on it that just seems so backwards to me. Like, it's not even the fact that the soundtrack that they made for the remastered version wasn't really good, because it really was, but it just could have been so much, not better, but just more faithful, I feel like, if you were there consulting, like you were saying, pointing out little subtle details that you can't hear when you listen to the soundtrack, but if you look at the sheet music or whatever, you can see. I feel like that was a massive missed opportunity, honestly, and quite a bad idea on Microsoft's part, to be quite honest.
Well, Paul Lipson, who directed both soundtrack remasters or remakes, has left Microsoft a few years ago, and he and I have talked about this. And he that was actually a real frustration to him. He never quite understood it. It would have made their lives so much easier. It probably would have cost less money because of the time spent trying to figure every note out just by listening. And then it would have been, I would have loved to have, promoted it and said, yeah, I just went to this session and hey, everybody, it's coming and it's really cool. But instead I felt kind of snubbed, and then it made me kind of be, yeah, okay, whatever. If you're going to snub me, I'm not going to be all excited about it.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. I can only imagine what the hype would have been if like 343 came out and announced that you had been consulting on Halo 2 Anniversary soundtrack. That alone would have increased sales. I swear to God, that would have gotten so many people excited.
I mean, maybe I'm jumping ahead in your questions, but it happens even now as they release trailers that continue to use themes that I wrote years ago. Each one of them takes me by surprise. I find out when you find out. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I probably find out later than you because I'm not waiting for the next trailer to drop.
Yeah, you're not sat there hitting F5 all day.
Right. So when I finally see it, I'm like, oh, they used that theme. They used that piano part. They used that melody I wrote. I remember where I was when I wrote it. And so I basically I'll usually in the thread of the YouTube video or the trailer or Halo or whatever it is, I'll just say nice music. And
fantastic.
I get a lot of people responding to that as though I'm either being mean or I'm snarky, and maybe there's a tiny bit of snark in there, but I don't want to be snarky. I'd rather just say, hey, wait till you guys hear the next trailer. They're doing cool stuff with the music, and I'm honored that they're still using some of my melodies that came out of my head. But apparently that's not to be, and I don't know if it seems to be, as you know, my lifetime career game experience with corporations has not always been the smoothest road, and
no.
That's why my saying "be nice to the goose" is something I continue to say. It's not that hard to be nice. I just don't understand being mean, and I honestly don't think I've ever been mean. I wasn't mean to Activision.
Yeah.
I wasn't mean to Microsoft, and I don't think I was mean to Bungie. But anyway, that's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
It's still my philosophy.
That feeds, again, very nicely into my next question.
Okay.
Sort of generally speaking, what are your thoughts on what little we've seen of Halo Infinite so far?
I don't have a lot of thoughts. Like I said, I'm working on my own thing. I was honored to see that they have brought back some of the themes. Whether those themes end up in the game itself, I have no idea.
I sure as hell hope so.
And people keep thinking that I'm putting out Halo behind the scenes videos because I'm trying to give some sort of message about working on Halo. It's not that at all. As a matter of fact, as I get older, I look back fondly on stuff I did 20 years ago. We're past 20 years when I first wrote the first Halo theme for Macworld.
That's
And
insane.
to me, it's just a little bit like, hey, I'm sitting here in my house during COVID-19, and I'm on Slack working on this new game. But, I have a little time on my hands periodically, and it's sort of fun to go through the old archives. And sort of, for people who are interested, it's not like I'm setting the record straight. I'm just giving this is interesting to me, like finding all of John Mayer's extra takes, which I had completely forgotten that I had. And that's from 16 years ago. And being able to share that is really fun. So that's why I'm doing it.
Some of those from the Brothers in Arms video was so chill to listen to from Halo 2's epilogue. It's like such a nice guitar sound. I feel like I could just fall asleep listening to it. It's so peaceful and just like, it has this air of nostalgia about it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
good.
Well, I don't think I'd even listened to some of those takes back 16 years ago. I was too busy. He had given me his preferred edit and his preferred mix. And I'm like, okay, that's it. He likes it. I'm using it. And I saw that over in the bin, there's people who know Pro Tools know that there's an audio bin of all sorts of other audio. And I saw all sorts of stuff in there, but I never bothered to listen to it. I was always thinking I was going to get back and put the live string, because I had given him the sampled strings. I thought I would, at some point, I'll put the live strings under the stuff he gave me. And as you know, Halo 2 crunch was horrible, so I ran out of time and didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I literally, at the end of this little back behind the scenes video, when I said it's better late than never, it's because it's been something in the back of my mind. It's like, one of these days, I should see if I can lift the solo from John Mayer and put it over the live strings. So it's like a little thing that I've gotten off my chest and I'm happy about.
Nice.
And I'm happy to share it with the fans, and I'm thrilled that people seem to appreciate it. So I think that's great. I want to keep doing this.
I mean, yeah.
If people want it.
People love to see that stuff. I know personally, I love to see projects or like games or movies that I love. I love to see them in like alpha or beta or like early stages, and hearing early versions of songs that I've listened to like thousands of times now, honestly, it's always so interesting hearing how they evolve and how they change over time into what you eventually hear in game.
Yeah, good.
So again, that segues very nicely into my next question.
Okay.
So, as you know, there are quite a few horror stories about Halo 2's development, the crunch, and just it wasn't a particularly nice time developing Halo 2. As a person on the inside who was like in the thick of it, you were really in the trenches with Halo 2.
Yeah.
Two questions. One, was it really as insanely stressful as it seemed? And the second question is, how did its development differ from Halo CE's development and also Halo 3's?
No, it wasn't as insane as it seemed. It was twice as insane as it seemed.
Jeez, I dread to think.
Yeah, it was everybody was very, and there's some misinformation sometimes, believe it or not. Can you believe the internet has misinformation?
The internet misinformation? No way.
Yes.
No way.
Sometimes people think that, all Bungie wanted to do, all the folks that worked on Halo 1, all we wanted to do was do something new, and Microsoft forced us to do Halo 2 and 3. That's just not true at all. We absolutely wanted to do Halo 2. We absolutely wanted to do Halo 3 and Reach. I mean, we wanted to do all the Halos we did. We were hoping at some point to close off that chapter of development and move on. But Halo 2 was like, there's no doubt we wanted to do it. There were a series of circumstances during the development of Halo 2 where some severe missteps were made, especially technically.
Okay.
That had to do with stencil shadows and the entire engine that was built in order for that to work.
Okay.
Which is what we showed at E3, which is why that show that we showed was amazing and tremendous, and we worked like crazy to make that show great. And that's always your first clue that you're doing something wrong. And I've learned this from day one, and we continue to learn this through today, is if you're working on the show and you're not working on the game, you're going to be in trouble. Because all that work you put into the show, whatever that is, the more of that work that's throwaway work, the longer it's going to take you to actually get caught up on the game and make the actual game.
Yeah.
So shows are a double-edged sword because they get the fans really riled up. I remember thinking, can we get the fans even more riled up for Halo 2? Like, everybody wanted Halo 2. We don't even have to do a show. We'd already done that teaser trailer.
That was
when Master Chief jumps out
I was going to say that was enough. That was all you needed, honestly.
I was like, let's just keep showing that. Why are we doing this live gameplay video? It's like, well, we have to prove that we can do it. We're not rendering it out of the engine. We're doing it in real time, and like all the goals were wonderful. Even the music was interactive in that demo. The music changed depending on how Joe played or whoever was playing, which was very cool, and it was hard to do, and but we worked so hard on that demo, and as you know, as you can tell when you play the game, none of that demo's in the game. There's a brief moment in Earth City. It's not even using, I don't even think it's using, it might be using some of the same geometry, but like a whole bunch of stuff just had to get tossed.
Yeah, there were some similar aspects.
When you're a year and a half into development and you have to like throw everything out, start over, that is a severe cluster. So that's what happened to us. And it ended up making a horrible crunch. But the crunch was pretty much self-inflicted because we just didn't want to let the fans down. We just didn't want to change our goals for the game as much as possible. So we were the ones who worked like crazy. Jay, my audio lead, Jay Wineland, brought in his cot and threw it in the vocal booth so he could sleep at night. And his wife and kids would come visit him for breakfast to see Daddy.
Jeez.
And bring him a change of clothes. I mean, it was bad. It was just not the way you should ever do anything.
Yeah, that's brutal. That is.
But we wouldn't have shipped Halo 2 the way you remember it if we hadn't done that. Which is, once again, it's like, okay, that's how that works.
Honest question, right? Do you think it was worth it?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's my problem. Is anything like it brought us all really closer together. It taught us a bunch of lessons. We're still proud of what we did. It probably did sort of destroy some people, at least for a while. It probably broke some relationships, personal and work relationships that needed healing, and I think most of those did get healing. Some of them didn't. But it's probably egotistical of me to say that it's worth it. It's really. I mean, let me just put it this way: nobody died.
That's good. That's a good start.
We didn't, cure cancer either. So it's like. It's just a game, but I think everybody who worked on Halo 2 is proud of the fact that they worked on it and proud of what we shipped.
Yeah.
And is, it's one of those things that's in the past. We've learned from it. The good thing was, and this is the way it's been in every studio I've ever worked in, is, of course, I'm the oldest guy by far. And I look at these young guys and I'm like, look, if I can be here till 2 a.m, you can be here till 2 a.m. It's like... Which is probably horrible, but like
lead by example.
I never forced anybody to do anything that I remember. But it was this. I've compared it to that scene, and you probably don't know this, but I recommend everybody go out and rent Cool Hand Luke with Paul Newman. And there's a scene where these chain gang prisoners have to shovel sand onto this road that's being freshly tarred, and it's in the south someplace. It's 120 degrees in the sun, and they're just dying, and they can't believe that their whole day is going to be this. And all of a sudden, Paul Newman's character, Luke, interesting,
fitting,
starts shoveling super fast, and they're all telling him, slow down, Luke, slow down, you're going to kill yourself. And eventually they, like you say, lead by example. They all decide to just go nuts and just give it their all. And they're done before lunch, and they have the rest of the day off. And it's just this sort of, and of course they all fall down dead, and they're just covered in sweat, but they're laughing, and There was something about that exertion. It's a great scene in that movie, and that's the way I sort of look at the Halo 2 crunch.
Some interesting allegory.
It was horrible. It should never happen. It felt like we were prisoners and we had no choice, but we took it upon ourselves to do an amazing thing, and we're proud. And it built some camaraderie too.
Yeah, well, for what it's worth, I mean, a large majority of Halo fans, myself included, see Halo 2 as the pinnacle of Halo. It's many of our favorite games, so to literally millions of us, like, you guys pulled it off and then some, so for whatever it's worth, that came out of it. It was many people's favorite Halo games, so I mean, like you said, it's hard to judge whether the crunch was like worth it overall, but you made one of the best games in human history, so that's got to count for something.
Well, it does count, and hearing the fans and hearing you say that actually does count for something. And this is one of the reasons why I love doing these interviews, because the fact that these games still have legs and people still talk about how it influenced their childhoods and how much they appreciate the quality, and that helps take some of the sting out of the memories of crunch, at least for me.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Good.
So for the next question, I want to go back a little bit before Halo.
Okay.
What was your favorite pre-Halo project that you worked on, whether it be at Bungie or I think you did one with Acclaim, I believe. Riven, was it? I believe.
Yeah, that was actually not with Acclaim. I think Acclaim might have published some console version. I'm not sure. It was actually for Broderbund was the publisher, and the developer is Cyan.
Okay.
Who did Myst.
Oh yes, yeah.
Riven, which was the sequel to Myst, was my first game project, and in the middle of working on that, I started working on Myth 1, The Fallen Lords. Yeah, the Riven project was it was a very, very different kind of project, and it was a good one for me to sink my teeth into as my first game. I worked with Robin Miller on getting his studio set up and showing him some synths and samplers and how to work with, I think I got him Studio Vision, which was a sequencer at the time. Anyway, I was hoping to do more music on that, and it sent him some music tracks, but he ended up wanting to do all the music, and of course he did all the music at the last minute, which is funny because that's pretty much the way I work too.
Yeah.
But I was I worked on all the sound design and the cinematics and the mix and a whole bunch of things. So that was really an amazing project. Myth 1 was also, I don't know, there's something about Myth 1 that I'm very fond of, because there were some things about the implementation of audio and music in that and dialogue that really opened up for me the possibilities of how game development could be with audio, with random lines, skip fractions, never knowing how things were going to play back exactly. There was very little scripted events. Like, I had my father did the voice of the surly dwarf in Myth 1, and he did a whole bunch of improv, and that was the first time I thought, oh, this is great. I can have an actor do improvisations. I can cut up all these little funny improvs and give them different skip fractions. And then when I would play the game, I never knew what the dwarf was going to say. So it always cracked me up to hear my dad's voice coming back at me saying things that sometimes were rare and I would hear. So that development started there in Myth 1 and carried all the way through to today. So I think I have a lot of fondness for the Myth series, especially Myth 1.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I remember you saying in Ackman's video that it was Myth 1 that really opened up the idea of video game music and audio being a huge thing that has like so much potential. And I mean, it's clear that since that has been proven right, with countless games coming out with just spectacular soundtracks that, like you said, are dynamic. Like, you can hit one point in the game and one piece of musical play, and you'll hit it again and another piece of musical play. It's really clever, and it's so different to how music works in TV, movies, or orchestras, or anything else. It's completely its own beast. It really is.
Right. Yeah, and that's, to me, I wanted to work on something that was different than what I had worked on for decades. So when I saw that games had this other approach to audio and music, this interactive, adaptive way of working and thinking. I was all over that. That's why I enjoy my career in games.
Yeah. So, out of all of the Halo games that you worked on, and even the ones that you didn't, which one was your favorite?
I think I've said this before, and I'm not sure if it's necessarily the best of the Halo games, but Halo 1, the very first Combat Evolved, I think it's my favorite because there were so many innovative things that we did in that were like proof of concept, were things nobody had really done before. And we improved on many of those things as we went along, but there was something really exciting to me about it. Was the first. We experimented. There was, much lower fan expectations. We had some core Bungie fans who were expecting great things, but it wasn't millions and millions of people like there were for Halo 2 and 3. So to that extent, I have the softest spot in my heart for Halo 1 Combat Evolved.
Yeah.
On the original Xbox. You should play it only on the original Xbox. I'm sorry, like even playing it on the 360 is not the same experience. Playing it on the PC is not the same experience. I didn't have, for my part, my hands on any other version directly than Halo 1 on the original Xbox.
Keep it that way.
It's really hard to it's really hard to play it that way now. It's hard to find that. You play it on Master Chief Collection, and it's like, oh yeah, that's close.
Yeah, it's not quite there though.
It's not what it was. It's not even when it wasn't on the 360. When the 360 came out and it was backwards compatible, this was for backwards compatible. There was a bunch of fights over that because I'm like, no, you changed the physics engine. You changed the mix. You changed the way audio works. You changed stuff. That was back in 2000 whatever.
2005.
When did the three? Yeah, so way back then I was complaining. Wait, this isn't Halo 1. You need to make it play on the 360 the way it played on the original Xbox, and they couldn't because they had changed the hardware enough that they had to do some things in software that emulated the hardware that was shipped in the original Xbox.
Yeah,
and very few people know that, but if you really do a side-by-side comparison, it is not the exact same game, and it's not the exact same game when you go to PC.
Oh no!
And then when they did the Halo Anniversary Edition, I think they used the code from Halo 1 PC.
Which
makes no sense to me at all. I don't know what they're using for Master Chief Collection. So
that's Halo 1 PC
this is
as
not
well.
Me obviously, now you see why Microsoft doesn't call me anymore because I'm always complaining. But
to be honest,
I don't think I've complained that much in public, so you'll get the scoop of Marty trashes Microsoft. I honestly just don't understand some of the decisions they've made. I just feel like, to me, if you have the gold standard with all of its flaws, which is Halo 1, right?
Yeah.
And if you're gonna bring Halo 1 forward onto any other platform, the thing you should compare everything to is Halo 1. You should compare how does it play on the Xbox, and you should try to get as close as humanly possible. And I think they could have. My opinion is, I think they could have done better. But that's just me.
A lot of people agree, and there's quite a few videos out there with a lot of views comparing the original Halo 1 on the original Xbox to like MCC, to PC, to the Xbox 360, and there are quite a few issues. There are none that are completely game-breaking, but there are quite a few that really do taint the experience. I'd love to get my old Xbox out one day and just replay the campaign just as it was originally intended, because there's a certain magic that it has on the original Xbox that I feel like the versions since have been missing, and that is obviously due to the many changes that had to be made for whatever reason.
Yeah, there's some intangibles, and I might be just remembering fuzzy rememberings. So, but one thing I can tell you that's funny to me is, and I know all the games that I worked on like the back of my hand. I know every single detail. I still remember a lot of stuff, but some things fade with memory. But I have to say, video games are unique in the sense that the hardware disappears and then suddenly the games themselves are unplayable. This happens with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
The Final Fantasy I played on the Super Nintendo doesn't play the right way on any other platform. It's different. This happens all the time. So I am happy that Microsoft spent the time and money to actually continue to bring these games forward. I actually give them credit and kudos for that. But I do know that, like, this is I think it's a funny story. I was teaching a class at DigiPen, which is a game development college here in Seattle area. And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to talk about Halo 1 and the development, but it would be great if I could use the original Xbox and surround sound speakers, because I was teaching an audio class, and the whole getup. And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. And so they worked to try to get it all going. And when I came in to do it, they're like, there was a cable that allows you to plug into the, there's a special adapter in the original Xbox that gives you this multimedia out cable. I forget what it was called, that allows you to do surround sound. And they couldn't find it. They didn't have a cable, and there was no place to get it.
Yeah.
And then even the TV, it was like, no, it actually looks better on an NTSC monitor than it does on a high def flat screen. Like that, the output isn't right.
Yeah, I find that
it's
as well.
just funny. Even with that, I'm using the Duke controller too. It was really kind of fun, but like there were other things about it that weren't quite right because we just didn't have the actual old 20-year-old hardware, the old 20-year-old TV with a tube.
Yeah.
And the right cable to get surround sound to discrete speakers. And so we tried. I'm telling you, it's hard to do. You can get your Xbox out all you want, but making it work is going to be tough. It's going to be hard. I will applaud if you do. And then you'll find out, how do I capture this? I can't capture this for YouTube.
That's the next thing. Thinking about how to record it all for footage is just, that's going to be an entire week I've got to set aside just to figure out how to do that. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. I know what you mean, though. It is annoying.
And I expect it to be the right aspect ratio, and I expect it to look the way I remember it. And you have to ship a surround sound mix on YouTube. So that's what I'm expecting from you.
I'll get talking to my contacts at YouTube. I'm sure they'll help me out with that one.
Okay.
So, yes, sort of moving on from that. If you could pick one character from Halo that is your favorite, who would that be?
The Grunt.
The Grunt, the Grunt.
Yeah, Joe Staten's Grunt is
perfect.
I had so much, and I trust me, I loved working with the actors from Firefly. That was just a huge thing. Ron Perlman was a blast. Keith David, you can't get a better actor than Keith David. Robert Davi as Spec Ops Commander. Yeah. And then of course my standbys. I mean, I'm still friends with Master Chief and Cortana, Steve Downs and Jen Taylor. I love all those people, but in terms of the character that just brings a smile to my face, and I still hear things I forgot about that come back is Joe Staten stuff. And I bet you in my archives I have stuff that I didn't use that Joe did.
You got it. You got to dig those up. People would eat that up.
True. I really should. Hey, maybe that'll be part of my 100th subscriber
100K special
upload. There you go.
Right, get this man to 100K subs right now. This is no longer an option. Go and subscribe.
Yes.
Okay, so one that might ruffle a few feathers. What is your most controversial Halo opinion?
Well, okay, this is an opinion I still hold to this day, and you will probably disagree with this, so I hope to ruffle some feathers. Okay, so in telling stories, classic stories, especially like the hero's journey kind of thing, which I believe Master Chief's story, especially in Halo 1, is a classic sort of hero's journey. I've always maintained that playing as Master Chief in a game context is a protagonist, but in a story context is really not the protagonist. And as much as we try to make you feel like you're Master Chief, you can't put as much you can't do things like irony, dramatic irony, because Master Chief should always know everything you know, and everything Master Chief knows is everything you know. Like, he should never have more knowledge than you.
Okay.
And you should never have more knowledge than him, which makes it really hard to tell sort of a classic story with dramatic irony. But one of the tools you can do in a story like that is, and by the way, this is why I always kind of felt like Cortana was actually more of the protagonist in my mind than Master Chief.
I can see that.
That's just a technical thing that I think. And so Master Chief is kind of the observer of Cortana's dramatic arc.
Okay.
And there were a lot of dramatic arcs in Halo, but I think Cortana was the more interesting of all of them. But the one thing that we did that I loved in Halo 1 was we did what's a classic reversal, where everything you think is true, everything Master Chief thinks is true, everything that you think is true about the world and the situation and everything you've been doing at a one moment gets flipped and the whole world changes. And so that was, to me, that was a wonderful moment when you discover the Flood.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We kept that as a secret, and it was a great reversal. I thought dramatically it worked great. I thought the way we built up to it was good. I loved that reversal.
Yeah.
So here's the controversial part. I'm like, hey, that works. Let's do stuff like that in Halo 2. While we're working on the story for Halo 2, I thought that would be an important thing. And there was other people, and Joe was one of them. I used to argue with Joe about this the whole time, was that the dervish, which turned into the Arbiter, was like, oh, we're going to have you play as that guy. You're going to play as the Arbiter at some point, level 3 or whatever it was. You remember what level it was? You becoming the Arbiter?
I want to say 4 or 5.
Okay.
4 or 5.
So so when Joe said, and then we go to this level and you are the Arbiter. and at first I was like, wow, that's cool. And I'm like, no, that's bad. So I was against it, and I'm still against it to this day. And here's why, because I think it broke some rules. It broke the rule of the Arbiter had a backstory that was much more complex. He had a religion, he was disgraced, he had all this stuff. So when I was the Arbiter, I didn't feel like I was the Arbiter. I felt like I was Master Chief, and I was now taking this side trip into the skin of the Arbiter. I didn't really feel like I ever was the Arbiter. I wasn't mad at the same people the Arbiter was mad at. I was confused about who was my enemy and who was I supposed to shoot. And they kept saying that was the reversal. And I'm like, no, that's not a reversal. And no one ever agreed with me. So I was pretty much alone at Bungie saying, I think this is a bad idea. In hindsight, I mean, I know how many people love it and they love playing as the Arbiter, but I actually thought it was a mistake. To this day, I still think it's a mistake. So,
do you think that mistake could have been rectified if instead of playing as the Arbiter, you played as like a generic elite alongside him, and the Arbiter filled a sort of like Cortana-like role? Like, you know how you were saying Chief was the observer and Cortana was the protagonist. Do you think it would have worked better?
I think it would have worked better, because then you could have had... See, one of the things about Master Chief we never wanted to do, because of this rule of, here's you, here's the character you're playing, right? And you want them to overlap as much as possible. And you can stretch that, but when you break it, it's then suddenly like, oh, I'm playing a game. I don't understand this break. And that is a subtle area. It's hard to and by the way, this thing I'm doing now, anybody from Bungie or Highwire that sees this on video is going to say, oh, they're going to turn it off right now, because I've done that so many times. But I'm always like, wait, guys, we're breaking this thing. And they're like, shut up, Marty. But you're a captive audience, so I can say what I want. I do think that's important. And I feel like I never really got into for me, I never really felt like I could get into the shoes of the Arbiter. When you're the Master Chief, he doesn't have to say much, because it's pretty much obvious things that he says that you already, as the player, are thinking.
Yeah.
Like you say, wow, geez, I wish I had a weapon. I wish I had a... And then he goes, I need a weapon. And you're like, yes!
I do need a weapon. I do need a weapon.
You're damn right I need a weapon. But with the Arbiter, he's like, yes, prophet of truth, I believe, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, is that supposed to be me saying these things? Like, I never believed that was me.
Okay.
Now, that's just my own opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously, people love the game. They love being the Arbiter, so I haven't been proved right. But I do agree with you. I think it would have been interesting to have played as like his right-hand elite.
Yeah.
Maybe even be the Spec Ops commander, although Spec Ops commander had so many cool things to do that
he was hard.
But then we could have actually put even more words into Keith David's mouth, because he would be able to say more expository things and more colorful things, because it wasn't supposedly coming out of your character's mouth. So that's, believe it or not, one of the reasons why Halo 3 went back to Arbiter being a non-playable character.
Oh, okay.
But you could, especially in multiplayer or in co-op, you could play as elites. But I don't think you never played as the Arbiter. So that way we could control what the Arbiter was doing.
Yeah.
And then you were elites that were along with them.
Yeah.
So we sort of did that on Halo 3, and I actually think we could have done something like that for Halo 2, and it might have been a better game, but who knows? It might have been way worse. So
what you do with Halo 3 was, we'll never know unless we somehow manage to enter that timeline. Then we'll never know. 2020 is a weird year though, so you never know.
Yeah, that's true.
You never know.
Happen. Time travel.
You know what? I wouldn't even write it off at this point. I wouldn't write it off. We've seen crazier things.
The murder wasps will have something to do with time travel, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a bit anxious because they sort of came and just vanished out of nowhere. Like, what's going on with the murder wasps?
They're growing. They're waiting for their moment.
The hive is expanding.
Yes.
So it's quite interesting actually that you mentioned those two elites in Halo 3 co-op, because since Halo 3, those two elites have since become not fully fleshed out characters, but they've become named sort of relatively important characters in the background lore. And
sorry, I didn't make a face. I didn't know that. Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
Interesting. And that leads me nicely into the next question, because me and you have spoken about this briefly before. But since 343 took over,
was that at Claude's house?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I met you at Claude's. Okay.
Yeah. I met you at Claude's, I believe, in 2018. I think it was, or last year, one of the two.
All right.
My memory's bad as well. My memory's gone now.
You're too young.
Hey, I'm 23 now. I'm getting on 24.
That's nothing.
My clock's ticking. But yeah, we spoke about this then. But since P43 have taken over Halo, they have put a really heavy emphasis on transmedia and on telling stories in the expanded universe in like books and comics and anime shorts and stuff like that. But not only do they tell stories in that medium more, the stories that they tell, they sort of weight them the same as game stories, and in some cases they even continue and conclude a game story in a book or a comic or something. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know Bungie had a very, very different philosophy with transmedia and with books and stuff. So what are your thoughts on that?
All right. I will tell you what the Bungie I worked with philosophy was.
Okay.
And that is that there's nothing more important than the game. So everything is subservient to the game.
Yep.
And in my world, the game was number one, and supporting the game with audio and music was my job. But everything was subservient to the game. So, and you know this because this has been talked about a bunch. We weren't in charge of any of the novels. We weren't in charge of the stories. We weren't in charge of any of that. And we also really didn't pay much attention to it.
Yeah.
Which is why this is exactly why on Reach, when we decided that we were going to tell a prequel story after Halo 3 and after ODST. We know ODST was purposely made in the timeline between Halo 2 and 3. so that we didn't have to like go forward.
Yeah.
Because we liked the ending of Halo 3. And if you think about our Bungie's timeline of Halo, it ends with Halo 3. Reach is a prequel to everything.
Yeah.
And so as we talked about what that prequel should be, I remember even saying, hey, I read The Fall of Reach. We're sort of, we're going against some of the stuff that's in there. And I remember Marcus going like, yeah, I don't care what's in there. It's like, we're going to make the game we want to make. And if we have to change, if we have to do the story, like the only canon for us was the game stories.
Yeah.
Which became pretty apparent to the fans, but I don't necessarily think all the fans liked that much because the ancillary products and the extra stories that came out of our stuff. And it's not like we didn't like Eric Nyland, and some of the other writers. We liked those guys. We loved what they did, and we thought it added to the whole thing. But it's almost like me saying, hey, I wrote this piece of music so that we should change the story of the game because of this music I wrote.
Yeah.
They would have looked at me like, yeah, you're insane. And they're like, of course not. So that was our choice, and that's what we decided. So the reason I look sort of askance at all of these extra things is we considered all of that stuff, to be really ancillary stories that were sort of part of marketing and helped expand the universe, and that's all great, but that wasn't anything that we worked on. We always felt the game came first. And so, we're not 343. We are not Microsoft. We had a different attitude towards all these things. Yeah. And that's, once the split happened, they made their decisions to do the way they wanted to do it. But yeah, that's not the way the Bungie I worked with. Now remember, that Bungie is also
it's changed a bit now.
Kind of not there anymore.
Yeah.
So but that was our philosophy, and that's how we did it.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much what you told me at the barbecue. That's what I assumed you were gonna say. It's a tough one, really, because I really get both sides of it. Like, obviously most of the videos that I make are about Halo's lore, and I've been reading Halo books since 2003, and I love them. But at the same time, the game should always take precedent. I wholeheartedly agree with that notion. Like, for example, the main antagonist in Halo 4 was essentially killed off in a comic book, which is it rubs so many people the wrong way. And I just figured I'd ask you again because your answer to me at that barbecue was really interesting, and I wanted other people to hear it.
Well, the thing I would say is, in an ideal world, no doubt in my mind, the game comes first, and then all of the lore and all of the ancillary stuff conform to what the game is set up, and they don't contradict anything.
Yeah.
But it's always a problem when, geez, look at the TV show Game of Thrones. They stayed close to J.R.R. Martin's stories that he wrote, and then he hadn't written past a certain part, and the TV show took off, and now there's a divergent. The divergence is not ideal, but that's what happens in real life sometimes, and that's what's happened with Halo.
Yeah.
And it's what I think is too bad is if the game then ends up having to conform to lore from a comic book or lore from a anime TV show or something. It's like I don't think that's ever a good idea. The game comes first.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
That's what I think.
Moving on to a few questions actually that are very, very music orientated.
Sure.
Are there any individual either pieces or soundtracks as a whole that you've done, whether it be Halo or Oni or anything else, that you look back on and give you goosebumps? Like, for example, for me, The Path from Music of the Spheres, or the Halo theme, or Heavy Price Paid from Halo 2. Those three pieces in particular, I've listened to them hundreds, if not thousands of times, and I get goosebumps every single time. Are there any examples for you that give you goosebumps?
It's interesting. Let me just say this: you have good taste.
Thank you. Well, actually, I say that. Some of those songs were suggested by me. Some of them were also suggested by one of my friends in real life, who has been a fan of you for years as well. But I listened to those three songs again before we got on this call.
Okay.
And literally all three of them instantly, like that, goosebumps, just straight away.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting is I love those three, by the way.
Yeah.
Halo 1, for many reasons. One was because it was the very first thing that, that was composed to represent the Halo universe. And we're free to go anywhere. And people can watch me talking about the origins of that and singing that melody in the car and then coming up with the chugging melody and then going, yeah, blah, blah, yeah, and singing that.
I love that. I love that bit.
That was all just loose and like, we just got to get it done. And here's a crazy idea and let's go. So I have a lot of, I have a lot of fond memories about how that came to be. It's interesting, both the Path and Heavy Price Paid were pieces that I started working on and I enjoyed them, but I thought, I don't think there's any place for either of these pieces. Like when I was doing the Path, I thought, well, this is getting me going, but it's probably not really going to end up any place because was it really representing Destiny enough? But I liked what I was doing with it so much that I just kept working on it. So I'm glad to hear it's got some legs. And the same thing with Heavy Price Paid. I remember it was, and I think I was able to bring that. Hey, I might have to do a Inception video on Heavy Price Paid.
Oh, people would absolutely love that.
I think, if once again it started just on piano, it was very simple. It was just like these 2-3 note chords and just this progression. And I thought, well, this is a beginning of something. But I kept going back to it and liking the sort of simplicity of it. And I kept thinking this will sound great with strings. This will sound great in a choir. And I was able to do a certain amount of stuff on it on Halo 2. And then this emotional equity idea, I wanted to bring it back in Halo 3.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy everything I did with that theme. But even when I was first working at it, I thought, well, this is just a skeleton for something else. There's probably no real place for it in the game. So you just never know.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to know that. So in terms of other pieces, like I really like the Ecstasy from Music of the Spheres. Yeah. There's that's another one of those that hits me the way I like. And I think one thing I remember when I was playing, after we shipped Halo 1, we were burned out. We just all went home. We all stopped everything. And the game finally came out, and there was some press about the game. And then it was just like, well, I was thinking we shipped sort of a mess. I just thought it's an unpolished mess. There was so much that I thought we needed to do to it. And that's because when you're working on something, you get so close to it, you see every single flaw, and that's all you can see.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised by how many people liked it. I kind of knew it was good, but I thought, well, it's still flawed, and it's still a lot of problems. So, I finally put the commercial version in my Xbox, started playing. And I'm like, wow, this seems more polished than I remember. This is a pretty fun experience. And I was able to play it a little bit more like a fan because I sort of wasn't looking so close up at it anymore. And I got to this point. Is it Assault on the Control Room where it's nighttime and you fly a Banshee in the snow? Is that Assault on the Control Room?
Two Betrayals.
Or is that
it's the same map as...
Is that Two
Yeah, it's the same map, but you go backwards.
Yeah, it's flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what a cheat. Jeez. That was on purpose, by the way. We were like, we can't design another level. Let's flip it and make it night. Okay, go.
Hey, for what it's worth, I absolutely love that. I think it's a very cool idea.
Okay. Yeah, we did it for emotional equity. Yeah, okay. There you go. So anyway, I was playing, so I guess it was Two Betrayals, and there was something about getting in this Banshee and flying up into the night sky and seeing the snow coming at me, and then, believe it or not, this string music came in. I don't remember what piece it is, but I actually got chills. I got like, wow, this is really nice. And that's not me saying, oh, what a great piece of music. It's just like the whole experience, plus that music coming in, because I had forgotten what I had implemented and what was going to happen, and I was able to go, okay, this really works for me, and I'm experiencing it like someone who's experienced it for the first time, and I I really enjoyed it, and I got the little chills up my spine. So
I know exactly which bit you mean. It's when you get the Banshee and you have to fly to the top of that little like cliffside.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean, and I can picture flying up into the night sky with the snow coming down. I know what you mean. It's very quaint.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, what I did as soon as I got that chill, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fly back down. I'm just gonna fly around and let the music play and see what this is. Like, I wasn't mission oriented. I was like experience oriented. I just wanted to have this cool experience, and that's one of the things I loved about Halo and that series is that we really let you spend as much time as you want, just sort of messing around and exploring. And that was one of the things I really enjoyed a lot about ODST is the amount of exploring that you could do and just enjoying the environment. And anyway, that I like a combination of all that stuff.
Okay, good. One question that I got asked a lot by viewers, Soldier7 recommended it, but so many people asked it, is what inspired you to compose A Walk in the Woods from Halo CE? This seems to be an absolute fan favorite, and there's a good reason for that.
Okay, that is a good, wonderful question, because everybody just picked one of the songs that didn't come out of my head. That's a Mike Salvatore tune.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you remember that back at that point, everything about Halo was completely on my shoulders. I was in Seattle. Mike was in Chicago. He was doing work that he was doing. And then at some point late in Halo's development, I called him and I said, Mike, if I threw some ideas at you, could you work on them remotely? And if I just said, hey, I still need some, I need some walking around music. I need some battle music. I need some stuff. Like, just throw me anything you come up with. And so that's where that one came from. That came right from Mike. He sent me some early work on Walk in the Woods. At that point, when he would send me stuff or I would send him stuff, he would add stuff to mine and I would add stuff to his. And then sometimes we'd come back together and combine. And that's how the collaboration worked. But if that's one of the pieces that really originated with Mike. So you'd have to ask Mike that question.
Okay.
Mike never, I'm speaking for Mike now, but Mike never had the burden of sitting inside of Bungie until recently.
Yeah.
So he never was, the assignments that I would give Mike were so loose because I knew he was just a creative person. And I'm just like, Mike, if you got anything you think is cool, just send it to me. And so he was just free to do anything he wanted. He didn't have to like, oh, this indicates this, or it needs to be at this tempo, or it needs to be in this key, or this has to fit this encounter. I just knew that he would just do stuff that he thought was cool, and most of the time, whatever he did was cool. Yeah. And I could figure out a place to use it. So that's Walk in the Woods.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to be happy to hear that. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had so many requests to ask the same thing to anybody ever. So you just made a lot of people happy.
Well, it's funny because I put it on a video just a month ago. It was like part of the walk I'm doing is a walk up the street in the woods.
Yes.
And I just did a little video of me walking in the woods, and I thought, oh, I should share that video and put a walk in the woods on it. So, it's one of my favorites too.
So, Quote117 asks, what inspired your incredibly ethereal tone of music? And then a sort of little extension to this question that one of my friends, Tagster, asked as well is, where did you get the idea to use Gregorian chanting from?
Okay, well, let's do Gregorian chant first. That's an easy one. It's believe it or not, I was in an early music ensemble when I was getting my master's in composition. I sang Gregorian chants.
Oh, really?
Live with a little group that we would do as part of an ensemble concert. So I was well aware of Gregorian chant. I just love the way that sounds. Gregorian chants always sound ancient.
Yes.
As soon as Joe Staten said to me, yeah, we need music that makes you feel ancient, epic, and mysterious, I'm like, okay, ancient, I'll do Gregorian chant.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so fast. I didn't even think twice about it. I wasn't thinking about, well, will this be, iconic to, 20 years worth of Halo? It was just a very simple decision. Yeah. If people want to feel the sense of ancientness, Gregorian chant will give you that. There are other things too, but I went with that. And then it was just a matter of coming up with a hooky melody that I thought could have lasting value, which I would say I was right.
I think you kind of got it. I think you kind of nailed it just a little bit.
And then what was the other thing?
What inspired your incredibly ethereal tone of music?
Oh, well, ethereal is just part of it's maybe just a style that I have or a preference that I have, but not everything is ethereal. There's like I don't think Drum Run is ethereal, or Rock Anthem to Save the World, or Molnar Mix. I don't think those are ethereal. But like I would. There are times when ethereal music really works nicely. It gives a certain mood. So I just don't have any problem having, sad, happy, heroic, all the different emotions and all the different ethereal, percussive, rock and roll, atonal, whatever works. I'm going to just take all of those buckets and use them. And I think if some people tend to gravitate towards certain things that they like the most, they sort of think that that's what I did for everything. And it's like, well, it's not. There's all sorts of styles in there. Just listen to the Halo 2 soundtrack. I mean, you hear a lot of different styles.
I was just going to say, Halo 2 soundtrack felt like the amalgamation of what you were just saying, how you have Reclaimer and Unyielding and Blow Me Away in there and Mjolnir Mix, and then you have Earth City and other songs like that are quite bombastic and heavy, then Heavy Price Paid and Wage that are really sad and emotional, and then Shadow Streets or whatever it was called with the guitar that played in New Mombasa, where it's the really low guitar with the African chanting. I use that song in every single video. I adore that song so much. That's
Great.
my walk in the woods. Well, everyone loves Walk in the Woods. That is my walk in the woods. I adore that song so much. So
good.
Halo 2 really felt like you were saying, you really just threw everything into the bucket. There was a type of music there for everybody, and it again, there's a reason so many people love Halo 2's soundtrack, and I feel like that's it, honestly.
Oh, good. That's great.
So the next question comes from a good friend of mine, Richard Sims. What is your most iconic and memorable moment when working on Halo?
Iconic?
Yeah.
Is it? Why do you own that term? Is that something?
Man,
it just seems like it's like a joke. What is that?
So I'll give you this story as short as possible. So a few years ago, when 343 took over Halo, they changed the art style quite a lot. They changed the way, the sort of aesthetic of things. Very staple designs that you guys kept consistent over all your games were changed, and quite a lot of people, myself included, weren't fans of that. We what 343 made for Halo 4 and Halo 5 looks really good, but it doesn't look Halo to a lot of us, and the Bungie stuff did. So me and a few of the YouTubers started making videos talking about why the classic art style should come back. And the first video that I made about that, I wrote it in the middle of university exams. I was under so much stress. But I was like, I need to make this video because this is a really important deal. So I wrote it. I didn't even proofread it. I just recorded it, edited it, and uploaded it. And then all of a sudden, I was getting hundreds of comments saying, take a drink every time this guy says iconic. And then I went into the script, hit Control F and typed iconic. And there were 72 different times I'd said iconic in the script. And from there on out, it was a tagline to my channel, I guess. Some would say a meme. Either way, it's a thing now. So that's the lore behind iconic.
Yes. All right, let me think. So in terms of me working on the Halo series, I'm not going... I think I said this one to Actman about 9/11 and working...
Oh, yeah.
9/11 happening in the middle of the... That's a memory that sticks in my head. If you want to hear about that memory, go watch that interview. But there's another one that I'm not sure. It's been sort of hinted at in a couple of behind-the-scenes videos, but this is actually true. It was during Halo 3's early development when we were really working on the story, and I was in a leadership position, and there was a team, the story team was working on it, and they kept coming up with different outlines for things. And finally, there was this outline of the story, and the structure of how Halo 3 was going to go. And I looked at this, and I even think I'm on camera saying that there was no structure, there was no highs, there were no lows, there was no death. And I knew that one of our goals was to make you think, as a player, that we killed Master Chief at the end. We really wanted people to believe Master Chief is done. The series is over. He died. He sacrificed himself. Over and done. And I looked at the outline that we had, and I said, this isn't going to work. No one will ever believe that we kill Master Chief because we didn't kill anybody else.
Yeah.
So I came back with a very short description of plot points that I wanted to see happen in the game. First one was Lord Hood had to come back because we weren't using him as a character.
Oh, really?
And I said, I don't know. Why are we using this new guy? Let's just use Lord Hood. He makes way more sense. So Lord Hood came. Because I wanted to work with Ron Perlman again, so that's number one. So Lord Hood has to be there, and then the first one to bite, it has to be Miranda, because everybody's going to expect us to kill Miranda. Like, that's an easy one. So we got to kill Miranda. And oh, by the way, as an aside, and I'm not sure if I've ever admitted this before. I probably have someplace. In the Firefly movie, which, as you can tell, we were fans of.
Yes.
Serenity.
Yes.
I watched Serenity, and what happened in the movie Serenity is this is going to be spoilers if you haven't seen it. But if you had all these characters that came from the TV show and these actors that you had fallen in love with, and then you're watching this movie that is supposed to be the sort of the wrap up of Firefly, and the first character that gets reintroduced and then dies is Shepard Brooke, and it's sort of like, okay, yeah, he's the guy they're going to kill. It's just like they have to kill somebody from the cast, so Shepard's the one they killed. Okay, got it. And then they kill Alan Tudyk's character, who was the pilot, and they killed him in the middle of him telling a joke. It came completely out of nowhere, just like when we killed
I was
Kat.
just going to say, like Kat, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
we steal from everybody. It's like there's something really amazing about, if death can happen at any moment, and it can happen in these, completely, like, no one was anticipating this. So when I saw Alan Tudyk's character, buy it in Serenity, I was like, what? Okay, now I don't know who's safe. Like, all these characters I love. Nathan Fillion.
Yes.
Are they going to take Captain Mel and kill him? Then I was actually worried about him dying. Up until then, I wasn't worried about him dying in this movie, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, we got to do the same thing. If we want people to be actually concerned that Master Chief might die, we got to kill some major characters. So Miranda first, that's the easy one. And then we have to kill Sergeant Johnson. Oh no, Prophet of Truth. We have to kill him. Because we weren't even going to kill Prophet of Truth, if you can believe that.
What?
So I said,
really?
Yeah, bring back Lord Hood.
Wow.
We have to kill Miranda, Prophet of Truth, and Sergeant Johnson, which will make you want to kill 343 Guilty Spark. Because otherwise, you'll have, all of a sudden, Guilty Spark has a red laser coming out of his head. Where did that come from? Why isn't it, So, and we almost did that in a cutscene. That was one of the things I'm like, no, you have to give the player some simple, I don't care if it's just push A to kill Guilty Spark. You have to give the player agency in killing Guilty Spark. We didn't have time to do a good boss battle. We've never been good at boss battles, by the way.
For what it's worth, Halo has never done boss battles right.
No, Prophet of Regret. You beat an old man up in a wheelchair. Are you kidding me? That was we laughed while we were doing it, but that was all we could do. Anyway, so we knew we had to kill Guilty Spark, and then the last death had to be Sergeant Johnson, and so. When Sergeant Johnson died, then I said, now everybody playing the game is going to go, okay, is Cortana safe? Is Master Chief safe? Like, I wanted everybody to just be sort of on edge. Anything could happen. That didn't go over real well. Joe Staten to this day still is mad at me for insisting that we kill Sergeant Johnson. At the time, he wasn't working directly on the Halo 3 story. He was working on the book. He was working on Sergeant
Contact
Johnson
Harvest.
Book.
Yes.
Contact Harvest. So when he came back in to help write the final script for Halo 3, he was like, wait, what? You're killing Sergeant Johnson. I mean, he tried so hard to make us not do it, and that's one of our arguments. And to this day, we'll argue about that. He still thinks it's a mistake. And you know what? Maybe it is a mistake, but that was that little series of changes that I said this. If these changes get in the story, I think I can make an emotional roller coaster happen for Halo 3. So,
yeah. Well,
you didn't know this, huh?
I knew that Sergeant Johnson originally wasn't gonna get killed, but I didn't know that you were the one who dictated that he died.
Totally killed him. And by the way, working with I haven't mentioned David Scully. I always forget this. David Scully and Pete Stacker. Pete Stacker is the guy who did Sergeant Stacker.
Yeah.
And also Captain Keyes' voice. And David Scully did Sergeant Johnson, and he did the voice of Elites and a bunch of other things. But those two actors, working with them, are probably the most fun you can have in a studio. Both of those actors are so much fun. They can do so many different voices. They go in and out of character so fast it makes your head spin. And the rule for both of those actors in the studio is record light is always on. You don't want to ever lose anything that they might say off the cuff because it's so funny. So,
I mean, there's so many good quotes that came out of David Scully. Like, I would have been your daddy, but the dog beat me over the fence. Like,
no, that's Stacker.
Was that Stacker? I always thought that
was Stacker.
Either way, that's a testament to how good they both were.
It is. Yeah. Well, and that came out of nowhere, and he said that, and I remember asking him about it. And he goes, "Yeah, it's something we used to say to when we were kids. We would yell at each other as an insult." And I thought, really? I love this line. So we made it as like one of the highest skip fractions you could have in Halo 1. So if you ever hear it in the original Halo 1, and there shouldn't be skulls in Halo 1, right? That we didn't ship with skulls. So you can't turn the skips fractions down. If you hear it in the natural, in the wild in Halo 1, you're really having a treat. But that caused us, because everybody at Bungie liked it so much, that's why we made a skull called I Would Have Been Your Daddy's Skull, because that was the skull that flipped all the skip fractions. And it was even the reason that we made a level. Isn't one of the little taglines and one of the levels in Halo 1, I Would Have Been Your Daddy?
I feel like it is, yeah. I definitely recognize that.
And most people didn't know why that was there, but that's why it was there, because we all thought that was a hilarious line. So
I had no idea that was why the skull was called that. Interesting.
See, you think all this lore comes from comic books and stuff. The real lore.
the developmental lore is a whole different ball game. It's a whole new ball game. So moving on, a question from my good friend Pixel Flare. What was your favorite non-music / audio based thing that you contributed to Halo?
Non-music audio based thing. Huh.
So nothing to do with music or audio.
Yeah, but audio. Still audio.
Oh, no, nothing to do with music or audio.
Oh, music or audio.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Make it even harder.
No. I mean, that I contributed? Well,
yeah.
I mean, besides killing Sergeant Johnson.
Oh my God. Besides that,
I would say... I'm going to get some flack for that.
Comments going to be interesting on this one.
So, unfortunately, this still has audio in it, but I really love that I was able to work on this, but it felt more like programming stuff than audio. And that's the loading screens. I just love being able to work. The guy who did the loading screens, especially for Halo, he might have done it for Halo 1, 2, and 3. Adrian, I can't remember his last name. His nickname is Cuban because he's from Cuba. Anyway, Adrian worked on these loading screens, and it just was so much fun to work with Adrian because the loading screens had to happen outside the game engine. So it had to be its own little thing. It had to be always in the smallest amount of bytes you could possibly do. And he just did genius work with the littlest amount of memory possible. And he did beautifully elegant things that worked. And I'm just glad to have been even sitting with him while he was working on some of these loading screens and helping out with those, because for some reason, that's a weird thing to say, but I love the way loading screens work in the original Halos.
That is not a weird thing to say. That is one of the things that I feel like people sleep on most with the original Halo games. Halo 1, 2, and 3 had the most calming, comfy, and just like relaxing loading screens. Halo 1 in particular, I could watch that like blue light slowly pan across the screen for hours on end and just listen to the chants in the background. Or maybe so comfy. So comfy.
Yeah, it was so cool. And what was great about it, I'm like, he showed me what he wanted to do. And he says, is there anything we can do in this tiny amount of space that I have left that's audio? And I thought, wow, I don't even know how that's possible. So I asked him if he could do a couple of manipulations to a single sound file. It was a teeny tiny single sound file that could loop, and then he would pitch up and down, and he would change how it came in and out depending on. I said, how long does the loading screen? He goes, who knows? If you just played Unreal Tournament or something, or whatever else games were out at the time, Azaric. If you just played Azaric, your whole internal memory is wiped. So when you play Halo, it all has to get loaded in again, and every level, there's no remnant of what you had. So the loading screens could take a long time. So we have to do something that feels like it's always telling you where you are in the loading process without having numbers, without being just a stupid red line, a percentage. And we wanted everything to feel and remind you that you're not at home playing in your parents' basement or in your bedroom. You're in the world of Halo, and everything is Halo, including the loading screen. And I loved working on that.
Yeah, Halo loading screens are an art form in and of themselves. So Adrian, my dude, just bravo.
He's a great guy.
Bravo.
Yeah.
On to the next one. We've already talked about this a little bit, but you've worked with some absolutely incredible names throughout your career. So like Paul McCartney, Steve Vai, Ron Perlman, Nile Rodgers, Breaking Benjamin, Incubus, and then also actors like Nathan Fillion, Alan Tudyk. Is there anyone else left out there, whether it's an artist or a band or even a game director or an actor or a voice actor who, in an ideal world, you'd love to work on a project with?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I didn't get to work with Peter Jackson, but he came to the studio. I have video of him in our studio walking around and, me shaking his hand.
100K special. 100K special.
Yeah. 100K special. Oh, that's right. I should share that. We were so excited when we thought we were going to work with Peter Jackson, and two of our, a few of our folks went out to New Zealand and stayed with Peter. And I remember Joe emailing me saying, I'm sleeping in, Frodo's house because it's there. Peter Jackson actually has it, and you can go there, and if you're a guest of his, you can sleep in the underground Hobbitville. And so, Joe was there. Paul Bertone was there. Oh, and Paul Bertone is working with Highwire now, right?
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
You guys, you fans, you need to do better research. You look up Paul Bertone's LinkedIn. He's
the more you know.
Me, Jamie Griesmer, and Paul Bertone are working together again.
That's big news. Paul Bertone was a big name in the original Halo games. That is okay.
Paul, one of my favorite designers. Jamie and Paul are, of course, I'm going to say this now, but it's true. They were probably two of my favorite designers on Halo.
Yeah.
Anyway, Joe and Paul got to go stay for a couple weeks, I think, in New Zealand and work with Peter Jackson for a while. And we were so close to doing something, and it could have been big. It could have been a game. It could have been a movie. There was so many different things that was going to turn into, and it all fell apart. And it's just so I always go, that would have been a fun thing to get fulfilled, but it will never be probably. So.
I can say as somebody
you should talk to Joe.
Dude, if I could get in touch with Joe, I would be over the moon. If Joe ever wants to come on this channel, he has a place here. He can, whenever he wants. I will wake up at 4 a.m. to fit a time. Whenever. Joe can come on here whenever. Absolutely.
Joe will contradict everything I've said, so that's great.
And you know what? After that, we'll have to get you back on then to contradict everything that he says. So it's a perfect cycle. It just never ends.
There you go. Never ends. Feedback loop.
Yeah, yeah. I obviously grew up watching Lord of the Rings. I'm a diehard Lord of the Rings fan, and I remember it was 2006 or 7 when we started hearing about the Halo Peter Jackson movie. I remember freaking out. I was only like 9 at the time, 8 even. I remember freaking out hearing about that. Like, the Lord of the Rings guy is going to be working on Halo. Like, what? And then it fell through, and I was so sad. But one day, maybe. You never know. No, you never know.
Well, I mean, that's where the South African movie, what was it called?
Landfall with Blomkamp.
No. Well, yeah, Blomkamp did Landfall, which was actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I was able to contribute to that. So, music went into Landfall, and I helped Blomkamp with that series, which was great. And I would love still to work with Neil Blomkamp on whatever he wants to work on. I'm like, hey, Neil, I'm available. But what's the name of that movie he made?
District 9.
District 9, yeah. I mean, Joe, I'm going to speak for Joe now, but Joe has trouble watching that movie because so many of the sort of underlying ideas for District 9 came from some of the brainstorming sessions that they had with Peter Jackson. And even the weapons that they use as props in District 9 are just Halo props that were going to be part of the Halo series. It's just spray painted white. A few knobs taken off and spray painted white, and then they use those weapons. So Joe looks at that and he's like, what might have been.
What could have been.
So, what could have been.
Well, Blomkamp...
I love District 9 is a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, I love it. I watched it. I remember actually when it first came out, I got it on DVD because I'd heard rumors on like 2009 internet forums that it was made from like the skeleton of what was once the Halo movie, and I was like, I gotta see this. Yeah. And it did resemble it in a few ways. I could see the Halo roots shining through. Neil Blomkamp did announce yesterday, actually, that he's making a movie again. So, I mean...
Oh, really? Oh, that's great. I was wondering.
You never know, because he did quite a few things with his own studio, Oat Studios, like little shorts that were really, really cool.
Yeah.
But he's back doing a proper movie now, so, I mean, there's no time better than the present.
I look forward to it. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff coming out for... I just saw that the Foundation trilogy is coming to TV in 2021, which is one of my favorite book series. So that's exciting.
Is that the Isaac Asimov? Yeah. Right. That looks really interesting. I'm looking forward to that. So the next one, if you had to swap your role as a game developer or participate in any other aspect of game design, what would it be and why? And that is from Ed Peter.
Yeah, I think. I'm not saying I'd be good at this, but I wouldn't. I think anybody who's in game development needs to have a certain amount of design skill. I would love to be a designer, game designer, because to me, those are the people who really are at the top level of making games.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a programmer. Programming is boring. I don't mind doing art. I do some painting and I have some artistic skills, but nothing compared to these artists that I've worked with over all these years who are just off the charts, amazingly talented. But I do have I think I do have a sort of a soft spot in my heart for certain design principles and design ideas. I would need a lot of help though. So, but I wouldn't mind spending, a long time working on game design.
Interesting. Okay. Next one is a question that I want to ask you. What is your favorite game or franchise outside of the ones that you've worked on? Now, I know that with Axeman, you spoke about games that you'd like to work on or other franchises that you'd like to work on, and obviously Zelda came up. But this question is meant more so just a franchise or a game that you're just a fan of outside of Halo.
Well, I think I probably said this too, but I'm a fan of the people who made Eco and Shadow of the Colossus and whatever the latest... whatever that other one was that they finally made. I love those games. I think I love the sensibility, and then I love the flow journey people. I think they make really, really interesting games.
Yeah, definitely.
So those are games I love. I actually love playing Zelda. So
yeah.
Not only would I like to work on, I love playing Zelda, and there are other games that I enjoy. I haven't played The Last of Us 2, but my understanding is that it's amazing. So, oh, what, have you played it?
Oh no,
Are you playing it
no,
now?
no! I've not played it. I still need to play the first one. I've been meaning to play the first one for a long time.
Interesting.
The first one,
You know what?
I'm
I
really excited for.
didn't finish the first one. I didn't finish the first one, which is making me suspicious of how much I'll actually like Last of Us 2. But everybody I respect tells me it's great. So
Oh really?
we'll
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Yeah. Why didn't you play the first one?
So I didn't own a PlayStation at all until 2 years ago. I was actually
Okay.
So when I was younger, I was a diehard Xbox fanboy because of Halo. And I always thought it'd be just wrong for me to get a PlayStation. And then finally, I opened my eyes and realized that's insane and bought a PlayStation a few years ago.
Yes.
And I'm currently working through my massive backlog of PlayStation exclusives. Like, I'm playing through God of War right now, which is absolutely fantastic. It's incredible. It's quite ironic as well, actually, because I grew up alongside playing Halo. I grew up playing Metal Gear Solid, which was for a long time a PlayStation exclusive as well.
Right.
But yeah, I've not played The Last of Us yet because it's on my list. It's on there in my backlog. But I've heard interesting things, should we say, about The Last of Us 2. I think from a technical standpoint, it's a masterpiece. From a narrative standpoint, I've heard conflicting things. Let's leave it at that.
I know there's some controversial things and there
Yeah.
may be some things, but anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I love the fact that they're stretching in different ways. The other game, there are David Cage games, and I mean, we call them David Cage games because he's so involved in every aspect of his games. And I think some of them are genius and some of them fall short. But I really enjoyed playing Detroit Become Human.
Yeah.
It has some. Okay, I'm. This is not a game criticism interview, but there are some things about it I don't like, but there were some things about it that I thought really pushed some boundaries that I really, really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed replaying some levels and seeing the way things change and branch. And they just did, from a technical standpoint, they just did some really amazingly beautiful things. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was an amazing experience.
Okay, good. A question from literally God. So apparently God is asking you a question. Interesting.
Wow. I'll have to think about this.
It's an honor.
Be careful.
What is your personal favorite movie score, and have you ever taken inspiration from a movie score when working on a game?
Oh, wow. That is... I don't know if I have a single favorite movie score. I feel like my favorite movie composer is probably Jerry Goldsmith. I also... James Horner. I mean, there's some just amazing composers on the movie side. But I would have to say Jerry Goldsmith, and his score, for example, to Alien, the first Alien, is just a absolutely gorgeous score. That might be one of the top film scores of all time for me. The other one is much older. It's the score to Ben-Hur by Nicholas Rosa. That was hugely influential on me when I was a little kid because I heard it probably when I was 6 years old or 5 years old. My dad brought home the double album of the score to Ben-Hur. So I didn't know what the movie was. All I had was the music, and I would listen to that music and try to imagine in my head what was going on. And it was so evocative and it was so powerful that I think that's a definite influence for me to want to do that for my career.
Yeah.
Or for my life, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so this one is, I imagine, going to get quite a spicy answer. Munster Chof asks, what were your thoughts when you heard that Bungie were leaving Activision? Feel free to be as open or as closed as you want in your answer.
Part of me was, well, it's about time. The other part of me was, gee, I hope they get bought, so then I'll get bought out on my stock. So, by the way, which didn't happen. So
Yeah.
I'm still holding a nice chunk of stock
Nice.
from Bungie, waiting for them either to get bought or to go public
Nice.
or bankrupt. If they go bankrupt, then that's the end of my Bungie stock. So there's a wide range of possibilities there. Yeah, well, because I was in leadership and I was on the board of directors when we went with Activision, I mean, if there's any blame for going to Activision, I'm part of it.
Okay.
There were seven of us total, I think. Of course, 7.
Of course there is.
Anyway, yeah,
Stars aligned.
that made that deal with Activision, and we knew it was a risk right from the get-go, and then it turned out to be exactly as bad as we thought it was going to be. Now,
Yeah.
I'm the only one who's going to say that, except anybody who no longer works for Bungie. And then everybody who no longer works for Bungie is going to say, yeah, it was bad from the start. If you still work for Bungie, you're going to be political, and you're going to say all sorts of things about, oh, we had a good partnership and blah, blah, blah. And we were able to build a wonderful thing. And, the time came for us to go our separate ways because we each had different goals, but we were happy and we love each other. And yeah, that's
The scripted answer.
That's BS. There's so many scripted answers out there that I hear, and I'm just like, yeah, that's just not right. This just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, it's like, well, that's about time. That was not a marriage made in heaven at all.
Nah, not particularly.
And the thing is, I'll remember this to this day. Like, the reason why we went with Activision was not just the money, but it was because as part of the contract, they didn't own the IP. Now remember, Microsoft owns the Halo IP, and we wanted to make sure whoever we were going to work with next would not own the IP. We would own the IP. And that was a non-negotiable for me personally. I just kept saying we need to be able to own and control the IP. And Activision agreed to that, and all the other big players during that period would not agree to do that, including Microsoft, who was very close to making a serious. We almost went back to Microsoft, if you can believe it.
Wow. That's crazy. After, yeah, because obviously you sold Halo to Microsoft in 2007, I think, and then going back to them with Destiny would have been interesting. I wonder how things would have worked out.
Well, you've been too young through this whole thing. We didn't sell Halo to Microsoft in 2007. We sold it to Microsoft in 2000. We sold Bungie and Halo. The whole ball of wax was sold to Microsoft in 2000, which is the thing that it's like, okay, well, Bungie no longer exists. It's a fiction.
Yeah.
It's a business division inside of Microsoft. They could have said, you can't call yourself Bungie anymore, and then we wouldn't. Well, who knows what we would have done, but they could have said that. And they owned Halo. So it was like, okay, they own Halo, they own Bungie, great. In 2007, our deal was, we'll give you Halo 3, but you got to give us Bungie.
Back. Okay.
So it was never going to be possible for us to take Halo with us. So it was like, whatever IP we do, we're going to own, and we're going to own Bungie. And for that, we will give you Halo 3. And it turned out we had to give them Halo 3, ODST, and Reach, but that was okay with us too, because we actually were able to participate in the profits on all 3 of those games.
Yeah.
And it helped launch Bungie and work on Destiny. So anyway, in 2007 we got our independence, but we didn't sell Halo. We sold Halo in 2000.
Okay, that's interesting. I think I probably was too young to realize that. I always thought that you held the IP until 2007, but obviously not.
No, and which is one of the reasons why I said, look, whatever new deal we make with a new publisher, it can't be the same kind of deal we made with Microsoft. Yeah. We have to hold on to ownership of ourselves, Bungie, and we should own the IP. And that was the agreement that Activision gave us, which was like, and Activision is like, and we won't mess with the IP.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Right, so moving on, we have a question.
But by the way, I'm just going to tell you this. Here's the spicy part.
Oh.
Activision not only didn't have the legal right to mess with the IP, but the only way they would be prevented from messing with the IP is if all the leadership at Bungie said, you can't mess with the IP. And that's not what happened, and that's why they fired me.
Yeah, that's not exactly what happened, is it? Not even close.
No, and I was like, that was probably my biggest disappointment, was like, we worked for a decade to make sure we could be in a position where we could stand up to the publishers saying, no, we own the IP, you can't mess with it. And I was overruled and then eventually let go.
It's a real shame, because Activision getting a hold of Bungie in that way was like, they had the golden goose and they managed to ruin it. I don't know. That whole situation is
okay. One more story.
Now. Oh,
I'm sitting at a dinner with the head folks from Activision. This is before we signed the contract. It was just before we signed it, and I'm sitting at dinner with them. You know, Bobby Kotick is there. Chief financial officer guy from Vienna School of Economics is there. A bunch of us from the 7 leadership of Bungie is there. And I'm sitting next to this Austrian guy, and he said, "Hey, Marty, I hear that," I probably told this story before, but I'm going to tell it for you. "I hear that you have this saying, 'Be nice to the goose.'" And I'm like, "Yeah, be nice to the goose." He goes, "Well, tell me what that means." And I told him, it's like, it's really important to be nice to the goose, because the goose is where the golden egg comes from. And so the goose is the team that made it, and sometimes it's hard to identify, but if you're nice to them, you'll get more golden eggs. But if you're not nice to them, you won't get golden eggs. And he goes, "Yeah, I like that story. Golden eggs, the goose, but sometimes there's nothing like a good foie gras."
Oh no, surely that was a big red flag.
I told you about the chill on the back of my neck. Well, I got a chill. I get a chill even telling that story. Oh. The red flag went off. I'm in the middle of sipping some wine, and he says that, and I'm like, oh my God. I felt like I was in a Twilight Zone episode. Like, what I should have done is stood up, flipped the table, and told all the other Bungie guys, we have to get away from here now.
Yeah, run.
But that only happens in my dreams. But yeah, a good foie gras. And by the way, think about this. This is right at the same exact moment that they were eviscerating the guys who made Call of Duty.
Yeah.
What was the name? Vince and Jason.
Infinity Ward.
Not Infinity. Yeah, Infinity Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it was just after Modern Warfare 2 came out.
Yeah, and so they were doing that. They were eating the liver of Infinity Ward right while I was sitting at that table, and it's like, oh my gosh, I thought we were protected from them doing that, and I was wrong. And I should have taken my gut instinct was, this is bad. We shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
That's hindsight, though. 2020.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. I mean, like you said, it sounded like a really good deal from the get-go. Them not owning the IP, and also giving you all the benefits that the other publishers would give you. That seems like a good deal, but yeah, it is what it is. Hindsight's 2020. It's in the past now.
It is. We're moving forward.
Yeah, and in that fashion, let's move forward to the next question. So this question comes from Kitty Rules, and they ask, how did transitioning from a massive studio like Bungie to a smaller indie studio like Highwire feel? Was there like a sort of relief that you could finally do things at your own pace without a publisher bearing down on you?
Yeah, it's a relief, and then it has its own individual problems that you realize why there's some, having big teams and huge piles of publisher money protect you from lots of things. Yeah. So there's good and bad to both of them, but overall it's such a relief to be able to be in a small team, and when we make the decision, that's what we do. And we're only limited by our capability. There's at this point now there's like just around 30 of us, so there's still only so much you can do. 30 is a nice sized team, but I mean, we weren't that much bigger when we made Halo 1. But the technology has changed and the expectations have changed. But it's really nice to be able to go to a meeting and make a decision, and that's the decision. There isn't like 20 more meetings with 20 more teams that are 50 people each, and everything gets changed.
No bureaucracy.
And that's what ended up happening in the size of a studio like Bungie towards the end of my time there. And Jamie felt the same way. Jamie had left Bungie earlier and then gone to Sucker Punch to do Infinite Second Son.
Oh yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah, and you know, he also felt the same. Still felt the, he was frustrated at Bungie because the teams got so big, and then he got somewhat frustrated at Sucker Punch too because they kept getting bigger and the decisions were harder to make.
Yeah, well,
and stick with. But at Highwire, it's just like, this is it. It's just us. If we decide this, then we better go do it because that's hard.
Yeah.
And it feels better. I wish we were able to turn things around a little bit faster. It's not like you can just give an assignment to a team now. We are the team.
Yeah.
And like on Golem, we had difficulties with publisher. We're essentially the publisher, but the funding came from Sony, and there were some difficulties during the development of that, which meant that we shipped a lot later than we wanted to, and that meant we missed, I think, a window of opportunity. But anyway, yeah, it's a relief. I'd rather work with a small team than a giant corporation.
Yeah, well, teams now are just getting even bigger. I read the other day, I can't remember what game it was, but it was quite a big AAA game. It had a team of like 1,100 people, and surely, like, I'm no game developer by any means, but surely the amount of bureaucracy with that, with like like Chinese whispers with sending messages along from team to team to team must be insane. Like, I don't know how you could collaborate accurately with 1,100 people. It's insane. But then again, I know nothing about game development.
You can't. I would say that you really can't. I mean, you certainly probably can't do anything very innovative, most likely, and you will find a sort of watering down of any edgy vision because it just goes through too many committees.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, this is why I'm looking forward to Last of Us 2, because that I know is a big team and it's super high quality. And I mean, it's like the last God of War. That had a real sense of a singular vision to it, which I hand it to. Is Cory Barlog, I think.
Yeah, Cory Barlog was the director.
Barlog, yeah, and I don't know how they do that. That's an amazing feat. It really is. It's not easy at all. Yeah.
And the last question for today, we're getting to the end now, is a question from Owen Spencer. I'm pretty sure you've spoken to before.
Oh, I know Owen, sure.
Yeah,
Hi, Owen.
Owen's a good guy. And he sent me a bunch of questions, but I had to just pick one. And this is one that I couldn't skip on because I went back to your channel and I realized that there were a few videos that I'd missed, and one of them was about this. So, Marty, can you tell us a bit more about your Christmas album? Do you still have plans to make it? I know for one, personally, I would buy a Marty O'Donnell Christmas album.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. I was doing this thing as part of sort of promotion for Golem, which was around the Christmas season. It was for Perp Games, and they pretty much let me do whatever I want. And I thought, well, I'll put some, I'll talk to the people, but it's Christmas time, so it was it was the 12 days of Christmas or whatever. It was an advent calendar.
Yeah.
And I was the last one to open. I thought, well, I need to be Christmassy, right? So I'll have the Christmas tree, and I'll have a red sweater, and I'll be drinking eggnog and smoking a pipe. I had all these little ideas in my head, and then I thought, well, I should put some. I'm looking to make sure I still have hard disk space left. We've been going for so long.
Oh yeah.
I thought I should put some. I should do some Christmas music. So once again, I put my hands on the keyboard and I started playing Silent Night, and I came up with this little interesting way of doing Silent Night, and I kept working on it, and I worked, all Sunday afternoon on this version of Silent Night, and I played it for my wife. She goes, "Wow, I really like that. Give that to me." So I thought, so I did. So I dedicated it to my wife, Marcy, who's a pianist, and put it on the video, and then I did it as a separate video too, just so people could just hear Silent Night during Christmas time. And then I said, gee, maybe I should do a Christmas album sometime. So it's a thought that's in the back of my head. I'm sorry, Owen, I haven't spent another second working on a Christmas album. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to. I would like to. I think it would be fun. People seem like they would like it. I mean, it's impossible to make a living writing and doing music anymore unless you're part of a team like making a game or on a movie. So just doing albums, I don't know how to make money doing that. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't make a Christmas album just for the joy of doing that. So that might happen.
I mean, I can say for sure it's something that people would definitely want to listen to. So, I mean, the audience is there. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, that'd be good. Maybe I'll get back to working on that.
Right. So I think that about rounds it up for today. Marty, this has been a long video. So thank you so much for coming and doing it with me. I honestly appreciate it so much. This has been a blast. I've enjoyed this so much. Yeah, again, for the 3 billionth time, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, Luke. It's great hearing your voice and talking to you more, and I will never refer to you as the British guy again. But you know what? I noticed you still haven't told me your last name, so obviously you don't want that to go out in public, which is fine. I don't blame you.
It's classified.
Luke is your first name, right?
Yeah, Luke. It's a weird French spelling.
Yeah. It's like Jean-Luc.
I was named after a cyclist or something. It's something like that.
Excellent.
There you go. There's the lore behind my name.
There, Lord. I love it. All right, good.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by, dude.
A great time.
Absolutely. Thanks for stopping by, man. I appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
Whew. That was quite the video. Massive thank you once again to Marty for coming on. To say that it was an honor is the understatement of the century, quite honestly. I just really hope that you guys enjoyed it. This video was a long time coming. Marty actually hit me up the morning after he did that video with the American guy. I've forgotten his name. And it was it was amazing to just finally be able to sit down and talk with the legend himself for an hour or two. It's truly the greatest of honors. And so I want to give a massive thank you to our 2 newest primordials, Matthew Rattling Thunder and Rye, and also our 2 newest iconic ones, V Carson and Andrew D, for the support over on Patreon. And of course, everyone else as well. The support over there at the moment is absolutely crazy. I can't quite believe it, honestly. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you all so much for watching as well. I really appreciate every single one of you. And I'll catch you all in the next one.
Oh, wait a minute. This was on pause.